What is up, movie friends? Welcome back to the show. This is Anthony.
And this is James. Today we're going to do an actor spotlight on the great Christian Bale, who is one of our personal favorite actors.
We've been meaning to do this for like the whole podcast. It's been around.
It's probably one of the most requested episodes for sure because all audiences love Christian Bale. Everyone who loves film, and even people who aren't huge film buffs, they know who Christian Bale is. They respect his work and the dedication he puts into his roles. We all know about it. So he's just one of the most respected people in Hollywood for sure.
Yeah, and he really came from nothing, and he really worked his way up and grinded it out. And it was just his sheer talent is what catapulted him to the top. And he earned every role he got. And like you said, there's rarely you see actors who commit to their roles as much as he does, and he famously is a method actor, just like actors like Meryl Streep and Daniel Day-Lewis are famous for being method actors, Robert De Niro. And obviously, like, he is the ultimate chameleon, where every role he's looks different, sounds different, his mannerisms are different. He completely becomes an unrecognizable person with each movie of his, and it's an unbelievable talent he has.
Yeah, and that shows his filmography too, is he only does about one or two movies a year maybe, so he probably averages like 1.5. Some years he doesn't even have a movie, but that's because he's kind of like Daniel Day-Lewis. He's really specific about his roles, and because he puts so much into it with his method acting. I don't know how much method acting he does like offset. Probably
he's not that method.
Yeah,
when he's on set, he's method, but when he's at home, he's normal.
But I know that when he was doing like the Batman films, he would speak with his American accent all the time offset, like during interviews and stuff, just to keep the practice and so that audiences would think he's American.
Yeah, a lot of people thought he was an American actor until they saw him like do interviews later after Batman and heard him with his British accent, his Welsh accent, and we're like, what? He's British?
He might have the best American accent of a non-American actor.
I think he could possibly be one of, if not the best actor at accents.
In general,
just being able, because like he can speak with an American accent naturally.
But then his
acting.
Boston accent in The Fighter is wicked pissing.
I think it's the best Boston accent.
It could be. It's better than Mark Wahlberg's, and Mark Wahlberg's is authentic.
It's unbelievable. And Christian just seems like a really cool guy. He seems like he's really down to earth. He seems like he is definitely uninterested in celebrity, uninterested in fame. Doesn't care about money. He
still is getting paid.
Well, he's getting paid, but he's not spending his money.
Yeah,
like he's if you see him at red carpets or in interviews and stuff, he's wearing the same clothes he wore 10 years ago. He's always wearing the same like one or two suits to the Oscars and Golden Globes. And
he still drives his 2003 Toyota Tacoma pre-runner off-road V6 truck everywhere. That's like his car.
He's had it for like 20 years, and he still to this day is driving that car around, and he's made probably close to $100 million. So he doesn't care about like luxury and materialism, and he just seems like a normal guy when he's not on set making a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he just seems like a regular person
because he puts so much into it, and then it's just like he's just a normal person. He's one of those awesome celebrities and actors. Not that other celebrities aren't awesome, but he's like you said, he seems very down to earth.
Yeah, and I love he's one of my favorite actors. I like to watch actor interviews and stuff, and he's one of my favorites to watch. He seems super funny, very insightful, but also kind of like he just likes to shoot the shit and doesn't seem like too pretentious at all. He seems just like super laid back and not what you would expect. And also, he doesn't seem very intense when he's just normally himself. He seems like he's a very amiable, like kind, lighthearted guy. But when he's dedicated to a role, he obviously puts all the intensity that he can muster into his movie roles.
Mm-hmm. I have a little background on him just to like get a sense of his life before being famous. And
I would love to learn about more.
So he was born on January 30th, 1974 in Haverfordwest, Pembrokeshire, to English parents. So even though he was born in Wales and he's not technically Welsh, he calls himself English because he moved to England when he was 2. So that's why he doesn't have really a Welsh accent. But his family, his mother was a... Hold on, sorry. His mother was a circus performer, and his father was an entrepreneur and activist, and that was part of the reasons why, as a kid, he moved around a lot, and that's influenced his career choice of wanting to be an actor, and he started ballet as a child. He got his first acting role when he was 8 years old in a commercial for fabric softener Lenore. He also appeared in a Pac-Man cereal commercial, and then he was in Anastasia and the Mystery of Anna in 1986, which was a TV film at the age of 10, and then at age 13, he went on to portray the character Jim in
Empire of the Sun,
which Steven Spielberg made.
In that movie, he gave probably the greatest child performance ever. And it's hard to see, like, even at that young of an age, he was able to do so much. And even Steven Spielberg said that he was a fearless performer at that such a young age because he's the lead of the movie. It's not like there's an ensemble. Like there's plenty of other actors, but Christian Bale is like mostly front and center in that movie.
It's a dark movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a child in concentration camps.
And he goes through major transformation. There are some really emotional scenes. There are some tough scenes, and he really pulled it out. And like you never see like young people like have that kind of maturity in terms of a performance that he had. And I think that he clearly, when you watch that, you see that he clearly had the natural ability because he's not a trained actor. He never went to school for it. He's naturally gifted, and he basically developed his own style of acting and preparing for roles. He never went to school, never was educated by, a master of acting or anything, and he just did it on his own. And that's something that, like, to the point of, when it comes to art, yeah, you can go to school and learn all the fundamentals and the history and, ways of approaching work. But to a certain extent, I mean, if you don't have raw natural talent, there's only so much you can do, whereas some people are just born with the ability to do something like that.
Plus, he also has a photographic memory, which he revealed on interviews for the Batman Begins DVD commentary special features, which is pretty cool. So that's very helpful to his roles and scripts and blocking especially.
Yeah, all the stuntmen he works with, the stuntmen and women who choreograph fights for him, they say that they only need to teach him a fight once and he can do it perfectly over and over again after that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty jealous. But before we continue, if you want to support Raiders of the Lost podcast, the very best thing you can do is obviously share us with your family and friends, but also become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost podcast. Patrons get perks like personalized videos, our podcast schedules for upcoming episodes so you can prepare for them. Top tier patrons get a monthly shout out on the podcast, which we just did a couple episodes ago. And the best perk of all is every patron has access to weekly bonus episodes of the show, which we post every Tuesday. Only patrons have access to those. Head on over to our website, RaidersOfTheLostPodcast.com, to check out all of our sources of content, our merch, our custom movie posters. Follow, subscribe wherever you're listening on audio platforms. Hit the notification bell. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. And thanks so much for tuning in around the world.
And I think that there was actually a tumultuous time for Christian Bale in the public eye, and it was most notably he had that major controversy of it was like an early viral thing on the internet in which he famously berated the cinematographer of Terminator Salvation because
Was it the cinematographer
Yeah.
or was it a lighter
cinematographer?
Gotcha.
So Shane Holbert, and he was while Christian Bale was performing the scene where he's speaking with Sam Worthington's character very aggressively, and you could say it's the most intense part of the film. And what's his name? Shane Holbert, the cinematographer, kept walking into the background of the shot to adjust lights while they were performing. And on like the third or fourth time, Christian Bale snapped and flipped out on him, famously like berating him, yelling at him, and it flooded the internet. Everyone was listening to it. Everyone was making funny videos about it, and every news outlet ran with it, and it became like a thing. And after that, people for a while they looked at Christian Bale as being a very intense person and maybe a very angry person. But I think that was just a very small incident in which got blown out of proportion for the public eye.
Yeah, we don't know all the specifics of the relationship between those two men on set. Who knows if that was like an ongoing thing that Christian Bale in the back of his head was driving him crazy. Like, you go into work every day and you're performing, and your performance is the key to the entire film. You're the star. The entire $200 million production is on your shoulders. And every time you're trying to perform something emotional and get into character and maybe you have to squirt some tears out, some guy's in the background in his cargo shorts adjusting a light, and you're just like, come on, Mike, I'm trying to act over here. So, like, I'm sure it wasn't the only time that happened, if it would be my assumption, because it's one of those things that I'm sure builds up over time. It's just like one, and then he snaps. And
yeah, that's a good point.
We've
It
all
probably happened.
We've
before
all
that.
been frustrated with colleagues before, and it's, unfortunately, with that, I'm sure the pressure mounted too, and he was a busy guy at the time because he was doing Batmans in between that.
And also, in terms of that movie, he actually was obviously very unhappy about how the movie performed and how it turned out. And McG, the director, not a good director, and he basically failed at that movie. It's on his shoulders. And I think that what I read in interviews that Christian Bale basically, McG like begged him to take a chance on him to let him direct this movie, and saying that like I have it in me to make a great big budget movie. And Christian Bale's like, okay, I'm going to take a chance on you. And I think while making the movie, he was probably understanding like this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
But I have to finish this. So maybe there was some reluctance to him even being there as well.
Yeah.
And being like I'm stuck in this giant movie that everyone's going to hate. and it's just a bad situation.
You can kind of see that in his performance too.
Yeah,
He seems like
he's so
irritated. He's like,
angry.
oh man, I left a Chris Nolan set and I'm coming to here and
Yeah,
working
exactly.
every day.
Yeah, imagine that.
But yeah, so that's probably the biggest controversy I think in his life.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's go through his cinematography and filmography. Sorry. Let's go through his filmography. And so, like we said, he started acting in the late 80s when he was a little kid, and Empire of the Sun was his first big major role when he was 13 years old. And I don't know if anyone's ever seen that. It's a movie that Steven Spielberg directed, and it's an adaptation of J.G. Ballard's memoirs of his time as a young boy in Japan during World War II, and it tells this story of this character, Jim, who grows up very privileged, and then he's thrust into basically a concentration camp.
Yeah, he becomes a prisoner of war, and he is thrust among this war camp that is filled with, gnarly adults and battered and grizzled men, and he's like a fish among sharks, basically. And it's an expansive movie. It's epic in scope and time, and it's a really great production. It's one of Spielberg's most underrated movies, if not most underrated. And what Christian Bale did in it really defined the movie itself. It wouldn't work without such a strong performance from the lead, and he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and then he almost quit acting as a kid because he got bullied so much at school for being in this movie, which is so ironic. It's such a cool thing to do, and then at school, obviously, I'm sure like insecure bullies were just giving him a hard time and just giving him those knuckle sandwiches for no reason, even though he's the coolest kid in school. He should be.
But if he did it now, he'd have a huge Instagram following and be like the coolest kid alive.
Yeah, he'd be like Finn Wolfhard,
a stranger kid's kid.
Yeah. But then Kenneth Branagh convinced him to come back to acting for Henry V in 1989. He has a small role in that, but it's also an important role to the character of Henry.
Yeah, he actually worked with Branagh a lot, and Branagh actually. People, if you don't know, he's actually a director. He's directed a ton of films, and he's directed a lot of Shakespeare adaptations and actually shot them in high format film. But this is obviously a small role, but it led to him. There's a great cast in this movie, so he's working with the best actors the UK has to offer. So it's a big job for him at such a young age.
I'm sure it's super great for networking. I'm sure it's like sports, like, oh, this kid's up and coming. Like, we're going to keep our eyes on him. We're going to give him the small role. Who knows what he's going to be like when he's like 15, 17.
If you're acting with this cast, you are the top of the top. After Henry V, I'm guessing he took some time to finish school or something, and then after 3 years, he started Newsies, which is a Disney film about newsy kids in New York, and it's a musical. It's a nice, sweet musical. It's nothing special, but he was the lead, so that's a big deal. And ironically, this is the lowest performing movie of Disney's, I think, history.
Is it really?
It's one of their worst performing movies of all time.
It still made like 60 mil, but the Broadway production made way more money than the movie.
So I don't even think it made more than 10 million, honestly. But he was very good in it. He's actually a terrific singer and performer, and obviously his dancing and paid off for this lead role. But again, not many people saw it, but also you're leading a big Disney production, so that's a really big deal in terms of the industry.
And what, he's 19 at the time, something
like that?
Yeah,
18, 19. And then next he did Swing Kids, which is actually it was a good concept. It didn't really deliver. It's not a great movie, but it has a cool concept where it's about Hitler Youth who become infatuated and fall in love with music that has been outlawed in Nazi Germany.
Swing music.
Yeah, and so they're trying to constantly listen to this music and spread it to others, and obviously that government was very controlling of what people could and do and listen to. So it was a good movie, but it wasn't anything special. But he was one of the leads. He actually co-starred with one of the actors of the Dead Poets Society in that movie. They both played the two co-leads, and Kenneth Branagh also starred in that movie as well.
And then he was in Royal Deceit in 1994, which I have not seen that movie. Do you know?
I have not seen it either.
So let's just skip that. And he was in the 1994 production of Little Women. He played Laurie, which is what Timothée Chalamet, his character, played. And I really like this adaptation of Little Women. It's a lot more romantic and kind of more classical filmmaking, and I really like the different interpretation of the character Laurie in it.
I think this is a better version too. It's a great movie. And the Australian director, what's her name?
Gillian Armstrong.
Yeah. Gillian Armstrong made that film.
Yeah, really beautiful movie. And then he voiced the character Thomas on Pocahontas in 1994, the animated film, which is kind of ironic, or coincidence, I mean, because he ended up acting in a Pocahontas movie. Yeah. Which we'll get to in a little bit.
It was like meant to be. It was destiny. But yeah, Pocahontas was great, and he was
classic.
Yeah, it's like I want to actually watch some scenes from that and hear his voice. That'd be funny.
Let's see. This is Royal Deceit, 1994, an old Norse legend of revenge, power, and human
I know
spirit
that movie. I know it.
Subsequently inspired William Shakespeare on his tragedy of Hamlet.
Oh, it's Hamlet.
Gotcha.
It's a retelling of Hamlet, and he plays Hamlet. But they're all different. Right. They all have different names. But he plays the son of the king and
Hamlet.
Yeah, and he's like trying to like avenge his father's death. And,
Oh wow, this cast is stacked. It's got
great cast.
Gabrielle Byrne, Helen Mirren, Brian Cox, Kate Beckinsale, Tom Wilkinson. Wow, I gotta check this out.
Great cast. And Gabriel Byrne plays the king, I think. Yeah, I believe so.
Of course, you had that in the back of your head somewhere.
And just the name didn't come to me. And then he was in a movie called The Portrait of a Lady, and that's with Nicole Kidman and a few other great actors. Honestly, not a very good movie, but it's got a stacked cast.
Mm-hmm.
He's working with some of the best actors alive. He has another small supporting role playing a young character, but not important or vital to the story. But again, you're working opposite Nicole Kidman and a bunch of other heavyweight actors, so it's a big deal just to be working in these movies at that young of an age.
Yeah, I totally
showing
agree.
how talented he is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then there's this movie called Velvet Goldmine was his next big one, and this is he led this movie, and this is actually a really great cult classic from the UK that had starred Jonathan Rhys Meyers and Ewan McGregor, and it's about
directed by Todd Haynes.
And it's about like David Bowie-esque superstar and a fan who like creates the persona, and Ewan McGregor is great in this. He does all of his own singing, I believe, in the film as well as the pop star. And then Christian Bale plays a journalist who is fascinated by the star and is trying to find out more about him. And while he's befriending these two characters, he's rediscovering that his past and how he shut out his homosexual emotions and urges as a young teenager, and he's now opening up to them again. So Christian Bale and Ewan McGregor actually have a pretty steamy love scene in this film.
Yeah, I'm sure you've all seen images of Christian Bale on set of this movie where he's like got his shirt like half opened up, but he's got all the glitter and colorful makeup all over his face. That's from this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a big movie in terms of cult classic in the UK, big time.
All right, then we have Velvet Goldmine, which I'm not familiar with.
That's what we just talked about.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Clearly you're not familiar with it.
Sorry. All the little animals, that's what I'm not familiar with.
So All the Little Animals is a movie. He actually plays a mentally challenged teenager, and his stepfather is
this is the one with John Hurt, right?
with John Hurt.
Gotcha.
His stepfather is an abusive stepfather who's trying to control him and send him off to a mental institution, and he befriends this old man named John Hurt, and also the character, he loves animals. And he meets this character, John Hurt, who is this old man who wanders the countryside burying, what do you call it when animals run over? What are they called?
Roadkill.
Roadkill. He buries road-killed animals as a way of returning them back to nature. And so he befriends this old man who it's a coming-of-age movie about him being able to overcome his stepfather. And it's a nice, sweet movie. It's nothing special. It feels like a TV movie. It was a theatrical film, but it was pretty good. But
Directed by Jeremy Thomas.
But he's a great acting in it though. Excellent.
Of course, he's Christian Bale. Let's see, what else did he do next?
Then we have another not Shakespeare, but another theatrical adaptation of Midsummer Night's Dream. Is that Shakespeare?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's Shakespeare. And he plays Demetrius, and he's still he's working with amazing actors, but I don't even think he made the poster for this movie, and they have all the characters on it. And
but I mean, yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer, Stanley Tucci, who else we got? Dominic West. So tons of big actors.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Sam Rockwell's in it too.
Yeah, so no way.
Yeah.
Wow. And then 2000 was his biggest year before Batman, and obviously American Psycho is what catapulted him into fame and stardom and really launched his career as a leading actor. And this is the most important step in his career, you could say.
Getting this role, yeah, and that's probably, I think, something he recognized because that's how much devotion he put into trying just to get the role where, the studios wanted Leonardo DiCaprio, they wanted Ewan McGregor, who was basically pretty much cast, and then Mary Harron really wanted Christian Bale, and then they eventually passed. And we did a whole episode on American Psycho, and then we all know about the phone call where he called Ewan up. He's like, hey, man, I need this role. And Ewan's like, all right, bro, take it. And so he let him take it, and the rest is history. But he still spent a year preparing for the role, assuming he was going to be cast in it, even though he didn't have the role as Patrick Bateman to stay prepared.
And he was still very young. He was only 26. Imagine that. He's 26 and he's Patrick Bateman. And he just has that maturity. He has a mature look to him. Mm-hmm. And also he has...
Where he looks young and old at the same time.
Exactly. So he doesn't look like he's 26, but he is. He looks like he's maybe 30, 31, but he's still so young in this movie, but his talent exceeds his age. And this movie, he really showed the world what he can do and showed how talented he was. I mean, if you watch that movie and then you learn like that guy's a British actor, you'd be like, that guy's British. His American yuppie accent was perfect and spot on, and also his commitment to the craft and to the story and really going to the extreme and not holding back at all and just putting everything into the role. It really paid off, and it's what makes the movie. Like,
Yeah.
No, I really stand by the fact that no other actor could have done what he did and made that movie work.
Yeah, to not be from America and like nail that yuppie Wall Street Ivy League kid and just to the T, it was perfect.
And he's definitely in the top 5 category of greatest performances of insane psychopaths.
And one of the best villains ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just one of the most iconic roles of all time.
And it's so hard that the tone of that movie between the horror and the comedy and just like the dry humor, it's such a weird line to walk, and he just walked it beautifully, and he balanced it out and made it just everything worked and clicked, and I don't think anyone could have done it better.
in the same year, he was also in Shaft, which came out in 2000 also, and he was a villain in it, right?
Yeah, so he did American Psycho first and then Shaft after, and they asked him to do Shaft because obviously seeing American Psycho, and the character in Shaft he's another yuppie. He's not a sociopathic murderer, serial killer, but he's also like, he is a ruthless killer, and ultimately, I believe Christian Bale didn't want to play another villain, especially one who's so similar to Pat Bateman in terms of what their character is, where they live, what they do for work. But I think that he couldn't pass up the opportunity to work with Sam Jackson. Also, maybe he wanted to reach more audiences in America because American Psycho, as great as it is, didn't make that much money. And so maybe Shaft would be a bigger way for him to make a splash in terms of American audiences. But ultimately, that movie was a big letdown and disappointment.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And then let's see, Laurel Canyon, which was in 2003, and that's a movie that is actually Frances McDormand's in too.
She
Christian
plays his
Bale,
mother.
Kate Beckinsale. So awesome cast, and
It's a nice family drama. It's nothing special, but it's like interweaving stories, and then there's romance and jealousy and infidelity, and then Frances McDormand plays a mom who's kind of like she's still like acting like a teenager, like partying and doing drugs and always having parties at the house and people over, and Christian Bale's character has to stay with her for like a week I can't remember, for some reason. I think for like a job interview, something for work, and it shows how like he doesn't want her to be his mom. But then through the course of the film, they develop a strong bond, which they always had the potential for. It's a nice movie, but Christian Bale, Kate Beckinsale, great cast, great young cast. They're both super young in it, but I think they're just both making their names in the industry.
And then 2002 was actually a great year because he made Reign of Fire, which is an awesome, awesome movie. This is so cool because not only is it like a new kind of role for Christian Bale, he's starting to like become like a leading man on his own now, and he's the lead of this action movie with dragons, but he's also starring opposite Matthew McConaughey, and both are in very unusual roles for what they usually are, especially McConaughey. He's unrecognizable in this movie, which I love about it.
I really like this movie a lot.
too.
It's awesome.
It's cheesy at times.
It's
There's
not
some plot
perfect,
holes,
yeah.
but like it's still a really cool concept.
Yeah, and the visual effects look amazing. The dragons look awesome, and I just adore dragons, and it's a really cool concept, honestly.
Yeah.
And Christian Bale, he proved that he could lead a big budget movie. This movie wasn't super successful or critically acclaimed, but it showed that like if you have him in the right circumstances, he can really flourish.
And
You know
also,
what I mean?
like, taking on the mantle of, like, that noble hero leader character, which will obviously set him up for later on in the Batman trilogy. This was, like, probably the first role you could argue where he did that in a main role. It is the movie. It's the first one.
It is the first one, yeah.
So he's, like, a leader of this, the last of humanity that they think of.
Yeah, when you are the lead actor or actress in a movie that cost $150 million to make, that's a really big deal. And when you do a good job, obviously the movie wasn't loved, but I dare you find someone who, if they saw Reign of Fire, to say that Christian Bale wasn't great in it.
Oh, he's the best part of the movie.
He's jacked in it.
It's so funny because they have like no food. They like survive on tomatoes,
Yeah.
but him and McConaughey are both just yoked out of their minds.
What happened was he initially prepared for his character to be scrawny and skinny because it makes sense for the world they live in. They're barely eating, and so he actually showed up to the set while they were in pre-production, and he had lost a ton of weight and no muscle mass. And then he saw Matthew McConaughey had gotten jacked.
Of course he
and
did.
so he started working out and bulking up just so he could compete with McConaughey.
Yeah, you're right, because you have to kind of match your opposite in a film like that. You can't just be like the skinny, scrawny guy if McConaughey is going to be jacked.
And also because they have a fight where McConaughey's character wins, but Christian Bale's character does put up a bit of a fight,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't make sense if he weighed 110 pounds and was putting up a fight against McConaughey.
Yeah.
But McConaughey is a funny story. So he shaved his head for that movie, right? He's got shaved head and beard. And the reason why he did this is because McConaughey admitted that he was losing his hair badly.
Oh yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
and so this is before he started making this movie, he was looking at himself at his hair and he's like, you know what, it's happening. I'm balding. Let me just shave it off. So he shaved it off, and actually it pissed off the studio and his agents because they're like, hey, you're Matthew McConaughey. You can't shave your head. He's like, I'm losing my hair. He's like, whatever. And then while he was making this movie, he discovered this product called, I think, Regenix, and it's a hair restoration cream. And so while he was making this movie, he bought this and you'd rub it on your head every day. And he did this for 2 years, rubbing this cream on his shaved head. And when he let his hair grow back, it came back full and thick.
Yeah, BS, dude.
Hey, that's what.
There's no. He got a hair transplant. He just doesn't want to admit it.
I don't know. Maybe.
That's like all these celebrities and actors say like they're not on juice and they just get enormous in like 2 months and like, oh, it was chicken and broccoli. No one gets jacked on chicken and broccoli. Just like you don't rub cream on your head for a year and 2 years and hair comes back full. He got a hair transplant. It's just an excuse, but it is what it is.
I don't know.
Bro, you don't.
His hair looks good.
There's no like that doesn't happen, especially 2002. They didn't have the products they had. They didn't have like Propecia and what they got out now.
They didn't have the technology.
They didn't. The dude got a hair transplant. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with
It's just he admits that he was balding, but to say, I think it's just like a stigma if you say you got a hair transplant versus like I rubbed some magic cream on it and it grew back full.
And also,
BS.
I guess it makes sense because that product would have taken off.
Dude, exactly. You see what I mean? It's all BS.
That product would have like destroyed.
For sure.
Like millions of people.
Why
would have
wouldn't they make that their number one tagline? Matthew McConaughey's hair grew back full. Do you want to look like Matthew McConaughey? Get Regenex cream and rub it all over your body and you'll look like Bigfoot.
His hair was really thinning. Like if you look at movies from like the late 90s, it was going.
Is what it is. Some
But
people,
it looks great now.
Hey, dude, I don't even care if you get a hair transplant. Who cares?
Yeah, no one cares.
But I think, it has that stigma.
But
for
no,
a
back
movie
then
star.
there was a stigma. I think hair transplants and any kind of surgery like that, back then in the early 2000s, I think there was still like a taboo about it, and it was kind of embarrassing to even think about.
But if you say it was an accident, I fell down and this cream fell on my head for 2 years straight.
I don't think he was telling anyone.
All right, we're going too long about Matthew McConaughey's hair loss, but also in 2002, Christian Bale, who we're talking about, he also came out with Equilibrium, which I think is a very underrated sci-fi film because it captured this like very dystopian world, sort of like 1984 V for Vendetta vibe, where the entire world is desensitized to emotions that the government has performed by making them take daily pills. And he's a character who he enforces the law for the government. He's like an agent, but he starts to not take those pills anymore. He starts to feel emotions again.
He also has a major inspiration from Fahrenheit 451, the famous book, where in this movie they're burning all books, and he plays a character who enforces the burning of books. And Sean Bean plays a character who like sparks his interest in actually, reading something, and that's what eventually sparks his inspiration and desire to feel emotion.
Plus his trauma from his past.
Yeah,
from his wife passed away, right?
Exactly, yeah. And ultimately, this movie was a huge failure. It made very little money, and this was touted as being the next Matrix. This was supposed to be like kung fu, sci-fi action with cool suits and awesome martial arts, and it's a fun movie, and it is good. It's super. I think it's very underrated. And
it bombed. $5 million on a $20 million budget.
Yeah, so a big failure in terms of the film. People were expecting it to be like the next Matrix, and it just didn't have anything in terms of the storytelling, quality of filmmaking. Also, there is a little bit of cheesiness to it in terms of the kung fu gunfighting.
I thought it was cool when I was 12.
Yeah, we loved it.
It's very cool. I think the gunfighting is awesome because it was like this new style of close quarters handgun fighting with like both your dual pistol wielding close quarters combat.
Yeah, while you're shooting.
It was pretty wild to see.
The director actually created the fighting style in his own backyard.
It looked like it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a little cheesy.
It is a little cheesy.
So it doesn't look like it's something that would make sense at all in terms of working. Like, why not just take a step back and shoot him?
Yeah.
That's where it takes you out of the reality of it.
The concept is really great, though. I really like the concept.
Visuals are great, too. And Christian Bale is phenomenal in it. He's absolutely fantastic, and like he always is. And once again, just like Rain of Fire, these are two big releases, but neither of the movies really caught with audiences, but people were seeing that he really was a talented actor for sure.
But he was also taking these odd roles, which was cool because I don't think a lot of people would have done Equilibrium if they didn't,
I don't think so either.
It's one of those things.
Chancy role.
Just like The Machinist. Like, who would take the role of The Machinist besides someone like Christian Bale? I mean, that role, he went down to 120 pounds, and that was his first real physical transformation that we saw that looked dangerous.
Drastic and dangerous.
Obviously the transformation for American Psycho, I'm sure he was a very strict diet. He did it for a year and a half, and that takes a lot of work and discipline. But going down to 120 pounds, and he's like 6 feet tall.
He went down to 110.
That's very 110.
No, 120. You're right.
120.
He lost 63 pounds in total,
and he's 6 foot tall. That's insane because he was literally skin and bones, which he was in the movie. And the director didn't even want him to do this. He's like, oh, we'll fake it with like a lot of camera trickery and lighting, and we'll figure it out. But
no, what I read is the director didn't even know he was doing it.
No, it's not they didn't know. He's like, we don't have to do it.
Yeah. Well, I believe what I read is that Christian Bale apparently showed up on set, and the director was surprised at his weight loss. I think maybe they said, "Yeah, I'll get skinny, but not that skinny."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it's part of the character to be very thin.
And he lost the weight by just eating 1 can of tuna and an apple every day, and just obviously coffee. So from that huge loss of calories every day, he was probably losing a pound a day. That much fat.
And this character, it's a really interesting story. It's a little confusing at times. It's about this industrial worker who hasn't slept in a year, and he begins to obviously kind of lose his mind. And as you watch it, you kind of lose your mind at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But it's a great weird little movie, and Jennifer Jason Leigh's in it as well.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
she
plays the sex worker, right?
Yeah, and just watching him in this role, you've never seen Christian Bale like this. He's like. And he looks like he's just exhausted, and he really sold that part of the character of someone who hasn't slept. And if you're sleep deprived, you will hallucinate, and you will have delusions. It's a real thing, and you won't know what's reality and what's not reality. And that's what the whole point of the movie is, blending together. And it's a great movie. Not many people saw it, but it is infamous for.
2005, he came out with Harsh Times, which the movie.
Well, Batman Begins came out first.
Did it? Well, they both came out in 2005.
Yeah.
Well, I'm already on Harsh Times, so
let's just get into it.
Let's get Harsh Times. Jeez, are we going by date? Like month? Harsh Times was directed and written by David Ayer, right?
Yeah.
This is one of his first movies that he made.
It's his directorial debut.
It's a pretty cool movie. I actually like it. I like Christian Bale's character a lot because he plays this guy who grew up in the hood, and he speaks fluent Spanish, but he was also in the Army and the Special Forces, and he's being recruited to go on missions down in, is it Brazil or
somewhere in South
Bolivia,
America.
Something like, or Costa Rica, I think, or no, Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about a 24-hour period where he has to go through all the protocols of the drug test and an interview while he's hanging out with his old best friend and his wife, and then he convinces his best bud to go on this one last binger, and a lot of terrible things happen. And I don't want to spoil the movie, but it's a pretty cool ride.
Yeah, it's a cool movie. He plays an anti-hero, and he plays a really hard guy and an aggressive man. And he made this after Batman Begins, and I think he wanted to completely do something different from Bruce Wayne, so he shaved his head and got some fake tats and did this movie. And
surprised he didn't do real tats.
Yeah, right. But it couldn't be more different from Bruce Wayne, and I think that he did a fantastic job. Not many people saw it again, but it's still a great indie film. David Ayer actually based the story on his own life, growing up in South LA and doing a lot of things that Christian Bale's character did in the movie, he did in real life growing up.
Every time I iron a shirt, I quote this movie. I go, like a piano.
Like a piano.
If you've seen this movie, you know what's up. All right, so
he's very funny in this movie.
Oh, yeah, he's hilarious.
He's got so much charm.
It's a cool character. Yeah. I like him a lot.
Great character.
But obviously, Batman Begins also 2005.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about this so much. And honestly, it might be my favorite Batman movie. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I think I might like it better than Dark Knight.
Well, I'm telling you, the first act of that movie is one of the best first acts of the last 20 years.
Everything about it, because I love The Dark Knight. It's a perfect movie. It's the best superhero movie ever made. But I just love the concept of exploring this character of this young man who loses everything despite having everything. He's got immense wealth and inheritance, but his family's gone. And what he decides to do with his life is not just fight crime and not just stop bad guys, but he's trying to save his entire city from decay. And I just think that
you came back to fight for your city.
I just think the concept of just studying that character and to learn and understand why he would make those decisions, it's just fascinating.
Well, that's what we never saw in any Batman movies. I mean, yeah, Michael Keaton was great as Bruce Wayne, but it wasn't like a character piece.
It wasn't an origin.
You know what I mean? He just is a charming guy in those movies. But in this movie, like Christian Bale and Chris Nolan really tapped into what would drive that character and the psychology behind the character. And Christian Bale famously won the role because he was the only actor who, during the audition process, actually used a different voice for the Batman character.
Where were the other drugs going?
Where were the other drugs going?
Oh, yours is way better.
Swear to me. Swear to me. Yours sucks.
My trailer voice
You
is
can
good.
be the Scarecrow.
It doesn't suck. So it's basically Cillian Murphy didn't get Batman, so he became Scarecrow.
Exactly. But Christian Bale, like, I think he's the best Batman, and I don't think he'll be topped. And I think Robert Pattinson's going to do an excellent job, and it'll be a very different take on Batman. But even so, I feel as though this portrayal of Bruce Wayne and Batman, I think in terms of how I view the character, is to the T, like, perfect for my imagination of it.
True. I also love Ben Affleck, and I wish we could have got a solo Ben Affleck Batman movie because that might have changed a lot of people's opinions on that because I think he did a phenomenal job
I think a lot of people liked him as Batman.
Yeah, but I still think Christian Bale, for me, is my go-to Batman. But
Yeah.
I'm so curious to see what Pattinson does with it.
But this is a movie-going experience. I remember seeing it in theaters with Dad and you and just being like, this is awesome.
This might be the most viewed movie of my life.
But it's up there for
possibly.
sure.
And I think I could quote this movie more than any other movie. I think I quote it the most in
Thanks
general.
to AMC.
Yeah.
They had it on their license on their channel for like 10 years.
Not even just that, but I've literally put on like 3 times a year just because.
Yeah, I love
I'm
it.
not even kidding.
The music, the cinematography.
James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer 1-2 punch.
Liam Neeson and Christian Bale sharing scenes together. It's so great.
Epic. Obviously, y'all know we've done our Batman trilogy episode, but we should do solo episodes just on each of them.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah. We'll do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So then in 2005, another banger. Wow, he did 3 movies releases here.
I wouldn't call this one a banger.
All right, so we think it's a great
Yeah, I
movie.
think it's a banger.
So The New World, which is a Terrence Malick movie, which is basically the Pocahontas story, but a very more like realistic Terrence Malick approach to the settlers in Virginia at the time, right? Is it Virginia?
It's right on the coast. I don't know where it is, actually.
I think it's Virginia.
It could be, yeah. It could be Virginia. And it's honestly one of the most beautiful films ever made. Emmanuel Lubezki shot it. He's been the cinematographer for most of Terrence Malick's movies since the Tree of Life. And Christian Bale plays the secondary character to Pocahontas. His love interest. Colin Farrell plays the lead, and Pocahontas.
Does he play John Smith, basically?
Yeah, Colin Farrell does.
Yeah.
And then what happens is their relationship becomes disillusioned, and then she falls in love with Christian Bale's character, John Rolfe. But it's amazing filmmaking. Terrence Malick is a very unique filmmaker. He's very secluded. He doesn't allow interviews.
There's like 3 photos of him online.
Yeah, and he generally, yeah, there are really. He generally doesn't write scripts. He wrote a script for this one and for The Thin Red Line, but no matter, even if he does write a script, he will edit the movie in a completely different way that has nothing to do with the script. He tends to make his movies based upon feelings and ideas rather than story.
He shoots a lot.
And he shoots a ton of coverage, and he often uses narration. But his movies, nobody makes movies like Terrence Malick. A lot of people find them boring and repetitive and kind of weird and stale, but when I watch a Terrence Malick movie, I see a real artist at work who's made their own dent in filmmaking history. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got his own specific style. He's probably the king of realism for American filmmakers for sure. But The Thin Red Line is a perfect example, just to keep going on Terry for a little bit, where that movie was supposed to be a starring vehicle role for Adrian Brody. He was about to break out, and this was going to be his big movie. Everyone's like, oh, you're in the new Terrence Malick movie. It's a war movie.
He was on the cover of all the magazines before it.
And then at the premiere, he sits down to watch the movie, and Jim Caviezel is the lead character of the movie. So Terry just, like you said, he goes by how the story is going, and that's how he'll write and follow the movie. So he ended up following that character instead of Adrian Brody's character. And Adrian Brody's character actually seems very weak in the film too.
He doesn't even have any lines.
He's just a couple shots where he's like kind of sitting
where he
there.
looks scared.
Yeah.
Whereas he was like the lead of the movie when they made the movie. And also in the New World, Christopher Plummer, 90% of his scenes were cut. And he got so mad, and he said he would never work with Malick ever again.
It happens on pretty much every Malick movie. Like, there's a chance you might not even be in the movie, even if you're an A-list actor.
Exactly. He doesn't care. But his movies are so incredible where every A-list actor wants to work with him. And he gets like his last couple movies, like Kate Blanchett, Christian Bale, Rooney Mara, Natalie Portman, Javier Bardem, and Ben Affleck, so many, and they don't make any money. His movies don't earn money, and they don't pay their actors. Like, they just do it just because they want the experience.
Yeah, it might be the most artistic filmmaking that you can do and most expressive. And I mean, we've talked about how Tree of Life might be the best movie ever made, but no one talks about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's do one more, and then we'll go into intermission. So,
let's do Rescue Dawn.
Yeah, Rescue Dawn, which came out in 2006, and this is a great movie. It's one of those movies where in his filmography, it's so dense, it just kind of gets lost in there.
Yeah, and Werner Herzog made this, and he's made a combination of documentaries and narrative films, and this is one of his better narrative films. It's really sensational. It's a great survivor story. Christian Bale plays Dieter Dangler, who was a real POW in Vietnam.
Fighter pilot gets shot down.
Exactly. And he gets put into this prisoner of war camp where there are 3 other men who have been in the camp as well. And they basically have little to eat each day and are just trapped in this hut and in this encompassing boundary indefinitely.
Treated below human.
Yeah, while this war is raging on the outside. And Dieter Dangler is such a great character. He's endlessly positive and upbeat and never loses his confidence and his ability to get out. And it's a never-ending drive for survival, which really is the heartbeat of the movie. And Christian Bale perfectly captured it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend putting it on your watch list soon because it's an epic. And even when you think the movie's about to be over, there's still like 40 minutes left into it. And it really shows the degradation or what happens to people when they break down emotionally, psychologically, physically in these kinds of settings. And it's also reminiscent of Empire of the Sun with that character
definitely, yeah. And there's actually a scene in both of them where a pilot flies right into their face. Well, in Dieter Dangler recounts.
Oh yeah, you're right. And he screams at it.
Yeah, exactly.
For different reasons.
Yeah, for real. But it's a great movie, and Christian Bale is super charming and very funny and very sweet in this movie.
All right, now let's head into our intermission, and we'll start with our movie quote competition. Like always, I have 2, one from a fan and one from me. So I'll start with our quote from Brooke Shanks.
Let's hear it, Brooke.
The world is full of many things and many people, and I shan't be lonely.
Many things and many people.
It's a classic. An old one.
An old one? It's from Gone with the Wind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks.
Nice job. All right, and this is from me. I didn't ask for a shrink. That must have been somebody else. Also, that pudding isn't mine. Also, I'm wearing this suit today because I had a very important meeting this morning and I don't have a crying problem.
Say it again?
I'll try to say it like the character. No, I didn't ask for a shrink. That must have been somebody else. Also, this pudding isn't mine. Also, I'm wearing the suit today because I had a very important meeting this morning and I don't have a crying problem.
Don't have a crying problem. Oh, what is it? I feel like
you're going to hate yourself.
I feel like you're doing an accurate characterization. All right, tell me.
It's Punch Drunk Love.
Oh, my God.
Barry.
Yeah. The pudding. How did I not get the pudding?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm such a bonehead. All right, here's mine. I'm here for 2 things and 2 things only. Kicking ass and chewing bubble gum. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
I was going to say, I thought it was going to be the Anchorman quote that Christina Applegate says. I don't know.
They Live.
What's They Live?
It's with Roddy Rowdy Piper, and he puts on the sunglasses and he sees that all the aliens.
Yeah,
yeah. That's what he says when he walks in. And he starts beating up killing all the ones in the bank.
Gotcha. Haven't seen that in a while. All right, guess this movie release year. The Shining.
1980.
Nice. Look at that.
That's easy.
Right in the spot.
That was the easy
Just
one.
keeping you on your toes.
Let the Right One In.
So Let the Right One In, which is
the Swedish one.
The original.
Yeah.
Let's see. The sequel, Let Me In, was made, 2007? So that means Let Me In, or Let the Right One In, was about 2002.
You're way off.
Is it in the 90s?
2008.
Whoa,
Let Me In was not even that long ago.
Was it? Well,
yeah. Chloe Grace Moretz was still a teenager.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know
I'd say it was like 2013.
I was
maybe.
way off.
Yeah. It's okay.
Wow, that was that was a terrible guess.
It was really bad. When you said the remake was 2007, I was like, oh, he's going to be way off. If y'all haven't seen it, it's one of my favorite horror movies. We love it. Let the right one in, the Swedish one.
Especially because Matt Reeves made it.
No, the Swedish one.
Oh, well, there's
Let
the
Me
remake.
In's a great remake.
The remake.
Yeah.
Matt Reeves made it because he's doing the Batman.
Yeah.
In the Planet of the Apes trilogy.
That's true.
Well, the last two.
That's right.
He didn't do the original. All right, movie pop quiz time. In Wall-E, what does Wall-E stand for?
Shit. Is it all an acronym?
Yeah, it's an acronym.
Every letter's part of the acronym?
Yeah, every letter of Wall-E is part of the acronym.
Man. I have no idea.
Waste Allocation Load Lifter, Earth Class.
That makes sense. Okay, here's mine. What movie did The Rock and Mark Wahlberg star in together?
Oh, what's that called? The steroid one. Pumped or no?
Want a hint?
Sure.
You can't get any blank without some blank.
Guns.
Nah.
I don't know.
Pain and Gain.
Pain and Gain.
Yeah, Pain and Gain.
Who made that movie?
Michael Bay.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. All right.
It's one of his best movies. It could be his best movie.
I like Transformers, the original. Bad Boys is his best movie.
The Rock is really good.
Okay, The Rock is really good because that's secretly a James Bond movie.
Yeah. Nick Cage and Sean Connery, sign me up.
Biggest hate of the week? Who we got?
Oh, yeah, we got a good one. Let me pull up this hater.
Yeah, The Rock is literally, that's a Bond movie.
It's awesome. Brendan Twin wrote in a TikTok clip, "She could have died? Really? You guys are too dramatic. Unsubscribed." For the Kill Bill clip. Unsubscribed. And also, Sub2 Audie Kirby wrote, "Anyone would be so blessed to look at the back of his head, Ron Weasley's head. Obviously didn't do your research. Unsubscribed."
All right, we have two biggest supporters of the week.
Let's hear them.
First one is Zach Dorcas. Definitely not twins. Fine podcast, but they're clearly not twins. It's just one guy, probably named Janthony, talking to himself. Have you ever seen them in the same place at the same time? I thought not. Unsubscribed. That might be the best review.
That's amazing. That's so funny.
So funny. I thought it was gonna be like a nice one, but I love that the whole thing was sarcastic.
I thought not.
Fine podcast. All right, and then Leia 2047. These cool nerds. These guys are like the dudes in high school who would start interesting conversations in class and make spot on points about any topic. I love movies. Listening to these cool dudes just talk about every movie out there, it really makes my day more interesting. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to. 10 out of 10. It's a perfect score.
So much.
10 out of 10.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Leia.
Appreciate it.
On this day in film history, today is August 9th. In 1969, Sharon Tate was murdered by the Masons gang at age 26. And then it's also Eric Bana, Gillian Anderson, and Sam Elliott's birthday. Not a bunch of very good movies came out this day.
Yeah, clearly we just did birthdays.
Yeah, I just skipped it all. They're all pretty trash. They're just not worth mentioning. Streaming recommendation.
I have on Amazon Prime Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson's latest movie. Oh, yeah. It's fantastic. It's so good. It got nominated for Best Picture, and it was his second Best Director nomination, and I really think it's an outstanding movie.
Yeah, it's very obviously all PTA's movies are underrated and underappreciated, and Johnny Greenwood's score is phenomenal as always. I mean, the House of Woodcock song is just gives me goosebumps every time I hear it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into our actor spotlight on the great Christian Bale, and we're
getting good now.
The Prestige.
Here we go.
She's only made like good movies from here on, except for one. The Prestige, which came out in 2006. We've talked about this briefly. This deserves its own episode.
People ask for it.
We love this movie. I love the book too as well. It's pretty different.
It has an 8.4 on IMDb.
But The Prestige it's a brilliant movie. It's one of Chris Nolan's most underrated. I could even see people putting it in their top 3, and I have no problem with it, of course, because it's that fantastic. We have great cast with Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale. We have Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine, obviously.
David Bowie.
David Bowie plays
Nikola Tesla.
So
Rebecca Hall.
Rebecca Hall, yeah, right. So the cast is absurdly good. The story is fantastic. It's a phenomenal twist, and I love everything about it.
And they squeeze this in between Batman and Begins the Dark Knight, and it's so great to see. It's the only one he's done, but to see Chris Nolan do a period piece, I love his aesthetic and his style of filmmaking and storytelling in a period piece setting. It's really fascinating, and Christian Bale plays a very complex role, very complicated role. And the more times you watch it, the better it gets.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil it because we understand that maybe if you're tuning in just to hear about Christian Bale, well, you don't want to hear the plot of the movies.
I swear I won't say it.
This one, you don't want to know the plot going in because it's a great twist. So check it out soon.
I adore this movie. It's great.
And then 2007, next year, he came out with 3:10 to Yuma, which is one of my favorite Westerns ever made. It's when it comes to remakes, we got asked about this in our Ask Us Anything question, how we feel about remakes. This is a remake done well.
Yeah.
3:10 to Yuma is fantastic.
It makes the movie better. It has a better ending because in the ending of the original, Dan and was it Roy?
I think so.
I can't remember. It's Roy O'Bannon, right?
Roy O'Bannon?
No, that doesn't
That's
sound
from
right.
something else.
Yeah, that's something else.
That's Owen Wilson.
Yeah, it's Shanghai Noon. But Christian Bale and Russell Crowe's characters are supposed to get on the train together, and and those two characters they wave, and they're like, they shake hands, and the train takes off, and it's a happy ending. But in this movie, it ends much differently. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it.
Wade.
Ben Wade, okay. Dan and Ben Wade, they make it in the end, but in this one, well, I'm kind of spoiling it, but it's just a great adaptation. And watching these two guys, powerhouse actors, working together in each scene is so much fun. It's worth the price of admission. It's a great score by Marco Beltrami, and Christian Bale plays a really, really great character, someone who is haunted by his past, and he has one leg, and he's trying to help his family survive, doing everything he can to do the right thing. And when an opportunity comes up that pays really well, he just jumps on it as a way to provide for his family, and that's his driving force. And he ultimately is just a good father, trying to be a good father and husband, and he gets mixed up in this gang. Yeah. Not in the gang, but trying to bring him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been dealt a crappy hand in life, like you said, one leg, and he's also trying to succeed at this mission with this horrible, evil character played by Russell Crowe. And it's great to watch their relationship and how their characters grow together throughout the film.
Love it. Love this movie. And next up, we have I'm Not There, which is a really interesting movie because it is this chapter episodic film about Bob Dylan. And the filmmaker cast 7 actors to play Bob Dylan in different, you could say, short films, which all are connected in the entire film. And, for example, Cate Blanchett plays Bob Dylan in one short, and then Christian Bale plays Bob Dylan in another, and then Heath Ledger plays Bob Dylan in another. But also what's interesting is each character, they're not named Bob Dylan. They all have their own different names, and they're like Christian Bale plays a preacher in this film, but they all imbue certain characteristics and even say things that Bob Dylan has said. And so it's a really fascinating way to portray an iconic figure in history.
Yeah, it's a really cool movie. Check it out if you guys haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. And then 2008, we have The Dark Knight. Again, we've talked about it with our trilogy. We're going to do a solo episode on it. Greatest superhero movie ever made that won't get changed. Chris Nolan's arguably best movie. This changed the game with what superhero movies could be. Changed the Oscars with now we have up to 10 nominations for Best Picture because it didn't get nominated. But, we all have seen it. It's The Dark Knight. We don't have to say anything else besides that, really.
This is the movie that puts you on top of the world. And Christian Bale, after this movie, super ultra A-list, top of the industry. And from this moment on, he can do whatever he wants. You know what I mean? After The Dark Knight, whatever movie you want to do, whatever filmmaker you want to work with, it'll happen.
Unfortunately, he did Terminator Salvation next in 2009, which we talked about earlier. And this movie is straight trash. I'm not gonna lie.
It's not good at all.
It's not good.
My guess is he probably loves Terminator and really liked the idea of playing John Connor because, the John Connor in Rise of the Machines, not a good character. And I can't remember that actor's name. Nothing memorable about it. So I think that he was envisioning I can make a really great recreation of the character, and
maybe we can start a new franchise.
And McG probably was like, oh, it's going to be this awesome wartime movie. It's going to be gritty and handheld, and we're going to change the tone and style of the franchise, and it's going to be hardcore. And then ultimately it just didn't work, and the story just kind of dumb. And
they try to be too complex when just go with simplicity.
Oh yeah.
That's what works best, especially with these weird sci-fi movies. I mean, the Terminator, the original, so simple.
Yeah.
Why mess with it? Keep it simple, keep it easy, keep it fun. The action sequences don't even work well for me in this movie.
Terminator seems to work best when the scale is small.
Yeah.
Not when the whole world is like at odds and like Skynet is this giant, huge thing. The best two Terminator movies are very small in scope, where there's just one villain and one hero, and that's it. But I mean, it's not. He probably had the best intentions, but it just, it didn't work out. I'm sure he got paid well, but ultimately, like, nobody is gonna ever remember this movie.
Yeah, some movies fail. That's the way it is.
Yeah. But luckily, he also had a great movie come out that year, Public Enemies, directed by Michael Mann. And he played Melvin Purvis, who was the lead investigator tracking down John Dillinger. And he's actually considered one of possibly, he could be the man who killed John Dillinger. It's actually unclear. It's disputed by two people, him and another person, who also claims that he shot John Dillinger. But he ultimately led the entire mission of finding him and killing him.
Yeah, I love this movie. It's so great. I love these crime epics like this movie. Johnny Depp's phenomenal in this movie as John Dillinger, and just watching them two in the same scenes together is just epic.
And the character of John Dillinger, he caused the government to form the FBI. This is the Bureau was founded as its first task was finding John Dillinger and also getting a grasp of the crime wave in the country of bank robberies. And so this was the biggest case of the year. John Dillinger was more famous than the Pope in America, and everyone thought he was like the coolest guy in the world. And
he's a rock star.
But also he was, he was ruthless. He killed people. But it's a great movie if you haven't seen it.
And then 2010, The Fighter came out. He played Dickie Eklund, Pride of Lowell's brother.
Mickey Ward, my younger brother.
So Dickie was Mickey Ward, the boxer from Lowell, Massachusetts, older brother, who was also one of his trainers. And it's the story about Mickey Ward and how he had the ups and downs of his great career, and he had that trilogy of fights, which I keep hearing rumors that they're going to make like sequels to this movie to go with the trilogy. But I mean, Christian Bale's performance in this, the guy looks like he's from Boston, sounds like he's from Boston, and it's not easy to do that.
He looks like he's really smoking drugs.
It's insane.
Like he's really high. It's an unbelievable acting. He deserved the Oscar. It's one of the best performances of the century. He just looks... Then the Dickie character, when you watch footage of the real Dickie and you watch Christian Bale, you're like, it's like the same person.
Because there's the footage at the end of the roll credits where it shows the real Dickie and Mickey together, and it's like, that's insane.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
This is the movie I think that really made people think, oh, Christian Bale is probably one of the best actors of all time after they saw him in this movie.
Transformation, huge too, as well, with the weight loss and then what they do with his hair and his teeth and just his overall look of, like you said, he looks like he's on meth.
There's a story that there's a PA who was guarding one of the doors to a set, and Christian Bale tried to get in with his security guard, and the PA wouldn't let them inside. He's like, "I'm sorry, sir. This is a movie set. You're not allowed in," because he thought he was really a crack addict. And then the security guard had to be like, "You know who this is?" But Christian Bale apparently was happy because that means that the makeup and hair worked really well.
All right, and then we have The Flowers of War.
Flowers of War,
which didn't you show me this movie like a few years ago? This movie blew me away.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It actually is the most successful movie ever made in China. Mm-hmm. It made over $300 million in China alone.
Yeah, it's a really, really great film. You guys should check it out if you haven't seen it yet.
He plays a man who's pretending to be a priest in war-torn China, and while Japanese forces have invaded the city.
Late 1930s.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great, sensational movie. So well done. The director of Hero made it.
Yeah, so he's posing as a priest, and he's leading those women to safety.
Yeah, he's trying to protect the woman inside the church.
Wow, it's a really good movie. And then The Dark Knight Rises, 2012, one of the most underrated action films of all time, in my opinion. This movie gets a ton of hate, but it's freaking good.
I love this movie.
Yeah,
the people do love this movie. It has like an 8.2 on IMDb.
It gets a lot of hate though.
It does get a lot of hate though. But I love this. It's a great cap to the trilogy. I think it's just astounding. The filmmaking is so big. Mm-hmm. I love the transformation of Bruce Wayne in this film. He goes through real adversity in this film, just like all the other ones, and it's a really sensational film.
Fire rises.
Have we started the fire?
Jinx.
So you came back to die with your city.
Out of the Furnace in 2013. Underrated movie. This movie is sick. So he stars opposite Casey Affleck, and they play brothers in this small town. And Casey's coming back from the Marines and the Army, and he's dealing with PTSD and his situation and his psychological breakdown from coming back from war, and his brother keeps kind of getting into trouble with these old violent people from where they're from, and Christian Bale sort of keeps having to rescue him in a way. It's really good.
It's one of his best performances, and it flew way under the radar because it wasn't successful. But I think it's an astounding performance. The character Russell Baze is really fascinating. He's, it's a blue collar guy who made mistakes in his past and is trying to make up for it, just trying to get by. And he finds himself in a really bad situation, and he has to try to overcome it, and not overcome, but try to get by. And also, he's up against Woody Harrelson's character, who is a villain in the area.
Kind of runs the grounds around where they live,
and he wants to kill his brother's character for losing him money at us because Casey's been doing a backyard brawls for him. And it's a great family drama. Christian Bale, unbelievable performance. He's really amazing in this, and it's a great film. I love it.
Directed and written by Scott Cooper.
Yeah, and they've worked together a ton. They're actually making a movie this year again. And then we had that.
I'll get to that.
No, go ahead.
Did he do the Hostels too?
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
And also in 2013, American Hustle came out, which is the next collaboration with David O. Russell. David O. Russell is, like we've said before, like he had the 6-year period where he was just making amazing movie after amazing movie. It seemed like he really revolutionized his own career. And Christian Bale, like Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence and Amy Adams, became a regular player in his movies.
Yeah, so David did The Fighter.
Yeah, and he's so good in this movie. He gained like 70 pounds for this. The character is so funny, but also cool and confident, but also you kind of pity him a little bit. But it's a very interesting character. I love the makeup and hair. Like he has this he's just completely bald, but he has this like Donald Trump like comb over that he has perfected. And there's a great shot where David Russell shows him like putting the hair piece together, and
he's like sweating. He's like in a rush.
He has to like glue a little bottom piece to make it look fuller, and it's just the dedication to the hair is like amazing.
Well, yeah, it's
the
scene where he does it normally, then the scene where he's doing it in a rush when everything's crumbling around him.
Yeah, but Christian Bale is amazing in this movie.
He put on so much weight for this movie.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a pretty underrated film.
Yeah.
And then he did Exodus, Gods and Kings. He played Moses, and then Joel Edgerton was the opposite of him in that movie. Ridley Scott made it, right?
Yep. He played Ramses.
I love Ridley. This movie just wasn't it for me. I think it could have been better. It just I didn't love it.
The filmmaking is sensational.
Yeah.
But the story, I think that they definitely did not improve upon the story, and they could have done a better job. But ultimately, I think that it's a good adaptation. Christian Bale obviously is great. The cast is really good. But yeah, I agree with you. It wasn't what I was hoping it would be. But I think Christian Bale did a fantastic job as Moses.
Yeah.
And then we had Knight of Cups, which came out in 2015, which is another collaboration with Terrence Malick. And this movie is about a screenwriter in L.A. who's kind of wayward, lost his sense of meaning, and in a way lost his sense of communicating and writing. And he's just like wandering through L.A. trying to like grasp like what the meaning of his life is. And it's a great, weird movie. Again, if you're not a fan of Malick, you're not going to like it. There's a lot of wandering around, a lot of narration.
Yeah, a ton of great metaphors, though, with the earthquake and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, totally. And this script, actually, there was no script for Christian Bale. And Terrence Malick doesn't, at this point of his career, he's not writing scripts. He's just telling the actors, like, I want the scene to, like, be about this, and you guys can maybe say something like that. And then he just starts rolling the camera and sees what happens. And so I think Christian Bale enjoys the freedom that Terrence Malick provides him.
Yeah, and then 2015... he starred in Adam McKay's film The Big Short, playing Michael Burry, who was kind of the Wall Street sort of genius who saw what was happening when the 2008 financial housing market was going to crash and all those loans would fail and people would lose tons of money and go broke and the bailouts and everything. So it's a really great movie about explaining really what happened. We talked about it in our Wall Street episode that we did, so check that out if you want more explanations of exactly what happened.
And Michael Burry bet against it.
Yeah.
And he made over $1 billion on his bet.
Yeah, so the character, he's like betting against people losing all their money. So it's like he has to do it because it's his job, but at the same time, it's kind of crappy that he's going to make so much money off people losing so much money.
Yeah, but also it's inevitable, and there's an opportunity where I can really profit from this.
And this is my job. This is what I do for a living.
It's a fascinating character. He's a guy. He's got like a glass eye. He was a doctor. He's a doctor. He never was studied economics or never studied that in school. Whatever you would study to become a broker. and he just has a genius intellect in terms of money, in terms of numbers, and so he's really paved the way of Wall Street of looking at numbers in a different way and understanding patterns, and is a very eccentric character. And Christian Bale, I believe, Michael Burry, he asked Michael Burry for his own pair of cargo shorts, and then Christian Bale wore Michael Burry's cargo shorts while filming the movie.
Looks like it. It's a phenomenal movie. We've all seen it. The cast is awesome too. Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
I mean, Margot Robbie's in it too, and then we have Anthony Bourdain makes a cameo in it too. So it's a little complicated, but I think Adam McKay toned it down for pretty much anyone to understand if they pay attention to it. But it explains a lot.
And ironically, for as great a cast it is, he's the only actor who didn't work with anyone else in the main cast.
And then 2016, he was in The Promise, which was directed by Terry George. This also starred Oscar Isaac, and it's about a poor medical student in Constantinople in 1914 who falls in love with this character named Anna. And
It's about the Armenian genocide.
yeah, so it's a really I've only seen it once, and I remember I thought it was a powerful movie.
Yeah.
But it's not, the best Christian Bale movie on his list.
No, it's good. It's good, but it could have been great.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just went a little too much with the romance.
Romance, yeah.
A little too much of like the love story in terms of like what the movie should have really been about ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, it should have really just been about the genocide mostly.
Yeah, I think it could have. I think it had the potential to be a really astounding movie, but I just think the direction they went in wasn't quite right.
Yeah, it could have been like a Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah,
powerful
or like
movie.
Schindler's List
Yeah.
quality. You know what I mean? But it was not everything's perfect. And then we had in 2017 Hostiles, which was also made by Scott Cooper, and he plays Captain Joseph J. Blocker, who is tasked with escorting a Native American chief and his family across the land back to their native land. And his character is very complex because he hates Native Americans because he's been fighting them for years. And this is a very dark movie, very dark.
Pretty underrated too. I like. It's a really good movie. Rosamund Pike's in it as well.
Wes Studi plays the chief.
She's really great in it.
He's awesome.
And then 2018, he voiced the character. What was his name? Bagheera, the jaguar,
The panther.
The panther. In the movie in Mowgli.
Andy Serkis made it.
Yeah,
And it's a darker reimagining of the Jungle Book story.
Netflix original too, I believe.
Andy Serkis's directorial debut.
Did a great job.
And then in 2018, he came out with Vice, which is the biopic about Dick Cheney made by Adam McKay. And I think this is probably the most underrated movie of the last few years. I think it should have won Best Actor for him. He ended up losing to Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody. He did a great job, but I just think what Christian Bale did in Vice was just like otherworldly in terms of performance. And it's like you watch it and it's like, that's Dick Cheney.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's an amazing movie. It's so good.
Yeah, it shows, again, same thing with Big Short, showing exactly what happened. This shows you inside the doors of the vice presidency and how the executive branch evolved so much while he was basically holding the strings for George W. Bush, who he was kind of just like, he was the president.
Happy to be there.
He was president, but
Yeah,
Dick Cheney was running the show.
Yeah.
And it showed how the executive branch changed and got a lot more power while he was in office.
Yeah, he pulled a lot of strings while he was there, and the reason why he was always the reason why he was the vice president was because he failed at becoming president. He wanted to be president, but he just didn't have. Politicians need a certain amount of charm, a certain amount of.
Politicians are actors.
Yeah, they need to be loved by the public, and Dick Cheney is not a likable
Personable,
person.
great speakers.
Yeah,
It's not that he's not a great speaker, he's just not personable.
So he failed at being a major politician in terms of becoming the president, but then when he had this opportunity, he managed to squeeze a lot of power out of it that the vice president never had.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating story to see, and he actually changed politics in America for the 8 years he was in office.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a great character study, really well directed by Adam McKay. Like there's that scene where he and Amy Adams, who plays his wife, they go on to this like Shakespearean monologue in bed, and it's super intense, but it's like so funny and awesome at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Really great metaphors and look like the fly fishing and everything. And
Yeah.
he's just amazing in this movie.
So how's the private sector?
How's the private sector? So the vice presidency is normally a symbolic position.
How'd you think about being my VP? Oh yeah, Sam Rockwell plays George W.
Chicken wings.
So good. It's one of my favorite George Bush impressions of all
Although
time.
he got nominated for an Oscar, I'm like, he didn't really do that much in the movie to get nominated.
He's
in like 2 scenes.
one of those movies. And then 2019 was the last time a Christian Bale movie came out, and that was Ford vs. Ferrari, also called Le Mans 66, depending on what country you're in. And this was, we think, maybe the best movie of 2019. We saw us in theaters. If you saw us in theaters, you know what we're talking about. It was such a great movie experience to see there in person on the big screen with the loudspeakers, because I love racing movies, but a lot of them just don't get it right, and they're not like memorable.
Like the last one that came out was Rush by Ron Howard, and I had so much expectation for it, and it just didn't work.
It's good, but it's not like legendary. But this is a legendary movie. This is going to live on forever, and I adore it so much, and everything about it, it's perfect. It's a perfect movie. They don't really make movies like in this style anymore.
It's so excellent. James Mangold made it, and he did 3:10 to Yuma, so they had worked together before. And Matt Damon as the co-lead as Shelby is great. Christian Bale and Matt Damon, every scene they share together is just like dynamite. They have so much natural chemistry, and this movie's just flat out fun. It's dramatic. It's got great stakes. It's an amazing story that you didn't know about. Ken Miles was considered one of the best racers ever to live, and people didn't know his name because he didn't end up winning Le Mans,
the Triple Crown.
Yeah, the Triple Crown. So, but I think this was.
But it's unfortunate because he won the race, but technically he didn't win because
Ford made him tie.
Yeah, and then he lost it because he wasn't the first starting position.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He should have won the Triple Crown and would have been a legend. I'm sure he's a legend to racers, but to public, not really.
And it was also fascinating learning about like the history of the car companies. Like Ferrari was dead broke, and they needed a company to buy them out. And eventually, what's the company?
They swindled Fiat.
Yeah,
so
Fiat
they swindled
bought them.
the deal with Ford to get an offer from Fiat.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of funny. If you buy a Fiat, you still have the same internal components like in your car doors as Ferraris.
That's pretty crazy.
But I think that Ferrari got bought out again by it's a German company, I believe.
It's just strange. It's amazing that company just doesn't make money, and people keep needing to buy them.
It's because it's so valuable what they do. Like they hand make their engines.
Yeah.
It's so expensive. Just the production costs of making a car. They don't sell a ton of Ferraris. I mean, not a lot of people can afford a $200,000 car. And then on top of that, when you have the opposing story of Henry Ford creating the factory system of cars and manufacturing and just turning out tens of thousands of cars every month and selling them all across America, that's making money. It's just different. So they still went broke even again after that. And so I believe it's owned by a German company, although Ferraris are still made in Italy. Mm-hmm. They're still manufactured there.
Yeah. But yeah, great movie. I love it.
And now we'll take a moment for Anthony to tell us about some movie poster stuff.
Don't forget to head on over to movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. If you're checking out our set on YouTube, we hope you are. You'll see that it is decorated with these amazing posters. They have all sorts of sizes, framing, backlighting, pretty much every movie imaginable, high quality printing, and they're super affordable, including when you add on our discount. The promo code is Raiders15. Again, Raiders15 at movieposters.com to get 15% off your order today.
And right now, Christian Bale is in post-production of 2 movies, so he's already filmed, and we're just waiting for them to come out. Specifically, most importantly, I think Thor: Love and Thunder. He's going to play Gore the God Butcher, so I can't wait to see Christian Bale getting back into superheroes, but playing a villain.
It sounds like a cool villain, and it looks like a cool villain.
And I'm sure it's going to be an amazing movie.
And he has a sword, so I just can't wait to see Christian Bale flaying people with the sword.
And Thor Ragnarok's top 5 Marvel movie for me. That movie is phenomenal.
I think it's the best Marvel movie.
It could. I mean, I could get behind that if you'd convince me, but
yeah. But in this, I mean, with Guardians as well, this looks like it's going to be a fun time.
It's going to be epic,
and I can't wait to see. I'm so curious to see how he'll look.
And then he's also got another David O. Russell movie coming out.
I'm more excited about that than Thor. It's gonna
be. Of course you are.
Yeah, it's gonna be epic.
And then he's also got a movie coming out, or in pre-production, so he's gonna go into filming soon of The Pale Blue Eye. He plays Augustus Landor,
and it's being written and directed by Scott Cooper, and it's about a detective in the late 20th century, I think, or the early 21st century, and he's investigating a series of grisly murders, and he has a protege tagging along, and it's Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, that's
it's
really
based
cool.
on a real story.
Who's playing Edgar Allan Poe?
Dudley Dursley.
No, I can see that for sure.
Yeah,
He's been because he was in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. He's
Very
a
good
very
in it.
odd, weird
Yeah.
character. And then that movie,
He's been in a few good things lately. Yeah.
the one that was really big on Netflix that
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson
Yeah.
was in.
The
Tom
Devil
Holland.
All the Time.
Yeah, movie's not that good.
He's actually a very talented actor.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's like he's not a leading guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure I'd love to see him in bigger roles. So his name's Henry Melling. That's his
That's
name.
it. But it's amazing. Christian Bale's never played a detective before.
That's pretty odd.
30 years in the industry is pretty rare. It seems like everyone eventually plays a detective.
Technically, he's played a cop, kind of.
I'm not saying a cop. I'm
I
saying
know.
a detective.
I know, but I'm just-
Detective.
All right, you want to do some fun trivia about Christian Bale?
Yep, I got a ton. Christian Bale is actually married to Winona Ryder's former assistant. When Winona Ryder and him acted in Little Women, she introduced Christian Bale to her then assistant, and Christian Bale and her started a romance, eventually got married, and they've been married ever since.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. In the movie Equilibrium, Christian Bale's character John Preston kills 118 people in the movie, which makes him, as of 2019, in third place for the record for the most deaths caused by one character. For the movie Harsh Times, Christian Bale spent 3 weeks with real gang members, police officers, ex-soldiers, and Homeland Security agents prior to shooting. He also wanted to do a full Ranger school course, which takes 8 weeks, but ultimately did not have time for the shooting schedule to fit it in. So he was given a crash course of firearms training instead. In the movie Batman Begins, Christian Bale said that the first scene he acted in with Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman involved the scene when Christian Bale is woken up by them after being healed with the toxin. And what happened is, while they were shooting, Christian Bale actually fell asleep, to which Sir Michael Caine was hilariously surprised by, and he ended up poking him in the ribs, waking him up, saying, "Look at that, he's bloody fallen asleep." While shooting Batman Begins on the streets of Chicago, a person accidentally crashed into the Batmobile. They were apparently drunk driving and said they hit the car in a state of panic, believing that the Dark Knight's tumbler was an invading alien spacecraft. In the movie Rescue Dawn, Christian Bale ate real worms. In the movie The Prestige, the initials of the main characters actually spell Abra. Alfred Borden and Robert Angier, as an abracadabra, a common word used by magicians.
This is a list of Christian Bale's most insane physical transformations. So for American Psycho, he bulked up to 190 pounds of very lean muscle. Then in 2004, for The Machinist, he dropped to 120 pounds of just skin and bones. 1 year later, less than a year later, he bulked up to 220 pounds. Less than a year later, he bulked up to 220 pounds for Batman Begins, which was too much weight, so he had to drop back down to 190 pounds. For Rescue Dawn in 2006, he went down to 135 pounds. For The Prestige, he went up to 180 pounds. And then 190 pounds again for The Dark Knight. For John Connor, he went down to 175 pounds. To play Dickie Eklund in The Fighter, he dropped down to 145 pounds, and then back up to 190 pounds for The Dark Knight Rises. In American Hustle, he went up to 230 pounds. Then he dropped down to 190 pounds for Ridley Scott's Exodus Gods and Kings. For Vice, he went up to 228 pounds. And then for Ford vs. Ferrari, he went down to 155 pounds.
That's unbelievable.
So you could say he's lost almost like 1,000 pounds and gained 1,000 pounds throughout his career.
That's a lot of work.
That's insane discipline. And it's not safe to do that. His heart probably does not like him.
No way. In the movie Public Enemies, Johnny Depp actually tried on a real pair of John Dillinger's pants, and he was pleasantly surprised to find that the pants fit him perfectly. In the movie The Fighter, Mark Wahlberg did not get paid and waived his own salary, while Christian Bale was only paid $250,000 for the role. In the movie American Hustle, it was Bradley Cooper's idea to give Richie DiMasso a perm hairstyle, as well as wearing hair curlers in the scene at Richie's apartment. In the movie Knight of Cups, Christian Bale had no lines to learn from writer and director Terrence Malick, who only gave him a character description. There was no script and all of the scenes were improvised. Christian Bale said that during production, he would have no idea what would happen to his character.
All right, that wraps our actor spotlight on the great Christian Bale. We can't wait to see the rest of his movies. I'm sure we'll cover him many, many more times on this podcast. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in around the world.
Take care, everyone.
Make sure to go to patreon.com/Raiders Podcast so that James can quit his job and we can get this show rolling even more.
Gotta retire, man. Podcast full time.
I'm never gonna retire.
Never,
but yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you're new. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Find us on all audio streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to check out one of these other videos right here for more content on our favorite films and breaking down all kinds of movie content. Thanks so much.